Who else?
I have a
Who else?
question too.
Okay, go ahead.
So when we set up the depreciation for the replacement property, Richard, the depreciation, so in your case, you know, the new basis for depreciation was the 238. Do you allocate that between land and building, or that all goes to building?
One of the things I'm researching through that right now is if we look at depreciation, we normally look at the depreciation on the one property. When there's a 1031 exchange, it does something a little funny with the depreciation. And that's the part I'm going to present in our next series. What we've got going is the old depreciation, does it end at the selling of the old property? Well, in some cases, we think the answer is yes. But in reality, what happens is it moves forward. Okay, and you recalculate the depreciation now in a sense that, okay, if you have a $250,000 property, you calculate in depreciation in 250. Now you get the new property is 400,000 and you calculate depreciation of 400,000. But I must suggest we have to look at that a little differently on that 400,000. You actually look at that depreciation on the basis of 250 and 150. It actually starts to split. And it creates a little bit of a different issue. Say you have the $250,000 property for 10 years on a 27.5-year schedule. That means you got 17.5 years left. You acquire the new property. The new property is 27.5 years as well. Guess what? You have one set of depreciation that goes for 17.5 years and the other one that goes for 27.5. So it creates a little complication.
So what about in the case there is an even exchange? There was no, the replacement property is the same value as the relinquished property. The relinquished property, the original depreciation obviously is only on the building, but the selling price is for the whole amount. So I'm trying to figure it out. I'm doing actually setting up the new asset on 221 tax return. So I'm trying to figure it out. In the case, in your example, for instance, let's say that the relinquished property was the same as the replacement property, had the same value as the relinquished property. So there was no new depreciation for 27.5. Would you allocate, how would you allocate, if any, to land, or will it all be depreciable basis towards the building?
You can't depreciate land. That's the straight up.
Yeah. No, I know. But so in your case, in the example that you had,
my examples represent the depreciable structures, not land.
So, but the selling price was included land.
When you're selling, okay, that you're looking at how they're working on the calculation for capital gains, right? You still have the depreciation that's still in play that still works the same. Okay, the intent on
so because I did prepare that 8824. So whatever amount, if you go back, are you able to go back to that slide? Maybe I'll ask the question in a different way. You know how you have that 8824 calculation, the next page? See how you have here basis of like kind property received. So this would be my new depreciable basis, right, on the new property. Do I just grab that number and put that number, assuming, just forget that in your case the value is higher? Would this be my new, when I set the asset, because now my asset is going to be the new address of the replacement property, so I have to set up a new asset. Do I put this number and calculate the number of years left?
If I understand what you're trying to ask, I think we have the old depreciation value will roll forward. And
so how would you prepare this next year when you have to set up the new asset?
Well, if the properties are exactly the same in value and there's no gain, okay, I get that part, you get that part straight up. So that would mean the depreciation schedule would still hold as it was going forward. So in other words, you're working on the depreciation balance rolling forward.
which would be the 238. So I set up
Yeah.
a new asset with the address of the replacement property, and I would put depreciable basis 238, and it wouldn't be 27 and a half. It would be the
Yeah.
the
it would be-
remaining years, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if the property was rented for 10 years instead of depreciating for 27 and a half, how do I, then you would change it to 17 and a half somehow?
What
And
you
then,
What you'd have is, okay, you know you got the 27 and a half year calculation. You're just rolling this, you have the 27 and a half year schedule. Okay, now let me use that term. The 27 and a half year schedule that basically rolls out 28 years. You used up 10 of those 28 years. You still have the schedule. The schedule maintains itself for the next 18 years, right?
so I would have to
asset.
put, in order for the software to properly figure it out, I would have to put that the place in service date is the original date this property, the relinquished property was placed in service, correct?
Well, I'd have to sit with Drake and see if we can do one in Drake that covers your example. I think what you end up doing is you're looking at the depreciation schedule, and you might say, what's my accumulated depreciation to date? And instead of it being 0, it would be the 10-year balance. Because you're gonna still depreciate it on the same original property value, right?
Well, yeah, so now what I'm trying to do is try to set up the new asset. So the 1031 happened in 2020. So now I have to report the new relinquished property, the new replacement property, but I have to set up the new depreciation for the replacement property. And I'm trying to figure it out what basis do I put in? Is it old building? When do I say that the property was placed in service? Because I did read that it's only for the remainder, not the 27, but the 17, since the original property was placed in service 10 years ago. So I was confused about that.
Well, I'm gonna look at it as, what if we bought the property in 2012, sold it in 2022, and we put it in service in 2022? Okay, so we already got the 10 years on the before. We know we got 17 and a half on the after, but the values are still the same. If you bought it for 250 up front and the replacement's 250 on the replacement side, there's been no value there change. Okay, the only thing that's changed is the depreciation schedule has been reduced from 27 and a half years to 17 and a half. So if you utilize the same still original asset value of 250, you're going to have to record in the software, even though your date's moved up 10 years, right?